Now, ladies and gentlemen,
Put your thumbs up and say it's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, Tickety Boo, everything's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, son. Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Welcome to another episode of Tickety Boo. Today we're going to be talking about something which is perfectionism. Getting caught in that trap of constantly trying to refine something and it never feels quite good enough. It's not a nice place to be. I think a lot of people can relate to it. Stats are sort of showing that around 30% of people struggle with it at some point in your life. So, perfectionism. Who's the perfectionist amongst us? You?
Guilty.
To a level of obsessiveness or...
Well, it depends whether I'm trying to clean my garden shed, you know.
By the way, just for the viewers and for Ian's benefit, that's because I once phoned Diona. I says, "What are you doing?" She says, "I'm hoovering my shed out." And no one's ever said that to me again since, strangely enough.
I was cleaning and I was getting perfectionism. It's definitely something I've struggled with, and I love that we're talking about this after last week's episode where we're talking about like self-belief, limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Because it's that strive of trying to prove we're good enough. Trying to, like for me, I mentioned being told that they, realizing when my eating disorder, one of the triggers for it was being complimented, saying they would rather be fat and happy like me. So then it's like, oh, well then I started to go, well maybe then I'm not good enough as I am. And the really hard thing that happened with that is that the thinner I got, the more compliments I got.
Right.
So then it was like, oh, so to be perfect, to be liked, and to be approved, and to fit in, like, this is how I have to be.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, I failed at anorexia for 2 weeks because I didn't eat. So then I discovered bulimia. But it's that constant, like, how can I be good enough? How can I fit in? I'll be better when. It'll be perfect. I'll do much better. I'll be happier. I'll be healthier. And so I think that's always been an underlying thing of mine. And then I flip-flop from one or the other. The extreme of perfectionism, like getting stuck and trying to get it done, is completely not doing it at all. Mm-hmm. Like going, oh, I can't do this, I'm not going to do it. If I can't do it perfect, I'm not going to do it. It would be like in university, it's been in a lot of things that I've done. But then also I've now learned that actually perfectionism is just fear hidden.
Yeah.
And it's just another way it's coming out, like where we've talked before about whether Ian's going to do his videos and what the fear is around that. He wants it to be right. He's been judged before. It's this underlying fear of being judged.
And I think the thing is as well, you know, you got different categories of people where they try to be perfect in all areas of their life, and other people it's very specific parts of their life, whether it's their appearance or, you know, their job performance or their relationship or whatever it may be. And it's something that nobody can be perfect all of the time at absolutely everything. And it's because at a deeper level something else is going on.
Mm-hmm. That's it. It's perfectionism. It's an absolutely perfect mask for insecurities.
It is. Can you think of an area in your own life where a sense of perfectionism crept in?
Oh yeah, I was a perfectionist for years.
Really?
When I first started out in business, and as a kid, I was picked on at school because I was the trampy kid. I got picked on a lot. So that kind of, as I went into senior school, I wanted to then be liked. So I was very, very self-critical about the way I looked. Always thought a million times before I said anything. And it was sort of, there's all kinds of perfectionism that I know where it stems back to. It's like, I wouldn't say it's a trauma response, but it's learnt behaviour from when I was a very, very young child. Essentially, it goes back to when my nan was younger. Mm-hmm. And she was born out of wedlock, which back in those days was really
frowned upon.
Yeah. So though she'd done nothing wrong, she was her parents weren't married. People would spit at her in the street and treat her really badly. So she was quite feisty and she'd fight back and got locked up a couple of times because she was treated like a second-rate citizen. So as we grew, I didn't know anything. But this was amazing when I learned all this. I didn't learn this till a funeral. So the way that she dealt with this is she made herself absolutely perfect to any of us from the outside looking in. Her shoes would be dyed the same colour as a handbag. She'd be perfectly spoken. And if you didn't know any better, you'd have thought she was a direct descendant to the throne, the way she was.
Yeah.
But the other side of that was, as lovely as she was, we felt as kids the family was tiered. And we were all a bit rough and ready, and we come from a big family. We'd sort of lived in a rough bit of town for a while, and we were a bit feral. So we sort of felt a little bit cast out of the larger family. And from where we were, looking back, even though it probably wasn't true, the perfect 2.4, super family looking it in, where everything was perfect from our point of view, they seemed to get all the positive attention, and we didn't. So in my head as a child, in order to conform, I had to be perfect. And that's where my perfectionism come from. So that, moving forward, so when I then started my own business and what have you, I could have got twice as much work done, but I was a faff because everything had to be just right.
So where
this
you...
fear of rejection.
Where you feel like you've got to put this sense of perfectionism across, kind of what we're saying is behind that mask is some level of insecurity and somebody who's probably not that happy with the way they feel about themselves and the world around them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that you've reflected back and realising where it's come from as childhood. I want to also talk to any parents who are listening, because how many of us have expectations about how we're going to parent? I got postnatal depression, and I know my expectations of a mother were through the roof. They were completely unobtainable, and of course I failed within like a couple of days. I had this whole routine I was going to do. I'm not surprised I got postnatal depression, and I'd had a cesarean. My pregnancy had gone well. So the pregnancy wasn't hard, but it was my personal situation and how I thought I would be. I set myself up for failure. Like, it was so hard. And that was the first time I'd been put on antidepressants to get through that. But how many of us other parents have such a high expectation of ourselves? It's...
Well, do you think that as a society we're sort of conditioned to go, well, perfection is the route to success?
Yeah,
I think it's quite easy to fall into that trap of believing, isn't it? Where in reality, if you actually focus on it, perfection's the very thing that stops us from getting started.
Perfection kills dreams.
To me, the way to, I don't even want to use the word perfectionism, is, for things to be better, is give yourself permission to suck at some stuff and not be great at it and allow yourself to get better. Rather than feeling low, you've got to go from here to here. It's focusing on the process of doing and evolving. Yeah. Because the thing is, perfectionism, when you reach the point of where you think you're perfect, you'll unconsciously or consciously shift the scale, and then you'll need to move up. And it's like chasing this thing you never actually finally get to. I once spent about 5 hours refining an Instagram post, right?
Yeah.
Did it change my life? No. I just lost half a day. And, to me, something that's executed that's not perfect is better than something that's never executed. You can start and refine. And that's the key thing. Don't sit there and wait till it's perfect, because there's no such thing.
And also, perfection does hold us back or uses up a lot of time, as you just rightly shared. I remember, and I'm pretty sure I spoke to you about it at the time. The first time I was speaking on a stage that wasn't my audience, they weren't people who'd paid to come to an event I was doing, and it was just me. I was speaking at the Edinburgh Wellbeing stage. I had no idea who was going to be in my room. The room held 100 people, and I'm like, well, what if nobody comes? Like, what if everybody comes? And I was like, oh my gosh, what if my peers come and I'm no good? Like, I had so much fear, but everything I'd been working towards over the past couple of years was to, like, this is the next stage. Like, this is the next step I want for myself. I wanted to I was on stage on the Saturday. Friday night, I wanted to call in sick and cancel, but I couldn't because I knew that would ruin my credibility. And this was a number of years ago, ruined my credibility, and also remembering that this was a thing I'd always been working towards.
Yeah.
And so if I don't do this, again, we've talked about regret in the last couple of episodes. If I don't do this, then what the heck am I going to do? Like, if this is everything I've said, then what am I going to do instead? And I was so filled with fear, and then I just did it. I rewrote the whole talk I was going to do, aced it, but I actually was so nervous that morning that I didn't have coffee, and I'm a big coffee drinker, and I was at the fight. I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, I ended up with 80 seats filled out of 100, and the people that were first coming into the room didn't want to come and sit at the front. Nobody ever wants to sit in the front, do they? And I was like, don't worry, come and sit at the front. I'm way more nervous than you. Apparently that's a big no-no within public speaking. You never let the audience know how scared you are, but that's authentic to me. I'm like, I'm nervous. I come up here. We had a laugh. I had people laughing. I did some demonstrations. But I was so close to not doing it because it wasn't perfect, and I was so fearful.
Well, perfectionism is that sort of pathway to depression, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's what it leads us down that pathway.
Of course, I mean, it's not only is it a mask for your insecurities,
Yeah.
it can be seen as a shield to protect you from, external criticism and attack. But it's also a source of procrastination. And on the same level as that, you're setting the bar so high, it's inevitable that you're disappointed. You never quite live up to the bar that you set when it's perfect.
Yeah.
And we're all a work in progress. None of us are perfect. So if that's the bar that you're setting for yourself, well, you stand no chance to start with.
I talked in the last episode how I'm doing this 100 video thing at the moment, and it was somebody's idea on social media. They're not doing it for monetary gain. It's not like a cult or anything that you join. It's just it's just a thing. And this person who put the idea out there, their videos are amazing. You watch the videos and the production's great, the way he speaks is great, they're absolutely amazing. And I watched his videos saying to do it, and then I scrolled right back through his TikTok account, probably a good couple of 100 videos, and watched his first 50 or 60 videos. They were rubbish. They were utter rubbish. But he hadn't deleted them. You could actually see the journey from to where the video is today that makes you want to aspire to be something. And I'd say, look at, if there's an actor you really like, look at some of their early work. If listen to Ed Sheeran talk and listen to some of Ed Sheeran's early stuff, it is really bad. Like really bad.
And he's very vocal about that.
And he's very truthful about it. I look some of my work in my teaching, in my therapy and stuff back in the day, I now deem it to be really bad. It was just part of my journey of getting to where I am today. But if I'd never allowed me to have that experience of sucking and the opportunity to get better and learn, I'd never get to where I am today. So it's like, stop focusing on having it absolutely perfect. Just get into the process of doing and not getting yourself stuck, because there is no perfect.
You were actually there. My worst event I did for speaking publicly was the one that you were at. You were there to help film, because that was the one I had more of a script. So I'd done other workshops. I had a list of things to do. I wanted to hit all these things. I was so stuck to that. It's the only time I've ever had a piece of paper in my hand, and that was my worst one. And I was filled with dread the entire 2 hours. I was like, oh my God, this is going so badly. This is so slow, because I was being rigid. And that's not how my zone of genius is not to be rigid. It's kind of have an idea and go with the flow. And I knew the work, but that was the most excruciating one, because I'd set myself up to be exact and perfect. And it was awful. I don't think it was awful for everybody. I hope not. But I got really great feedback, but I was dying inside because I wasn't sticking to this unobtainable exact. And that's not how
You weren't being authentic.
I wasn't being authentically myself.
So because you weren't being authentic, not only was it exhausting,
Oh my God.
also you took all the joy out of it for yourself.
Oh
you
my
stole
God.
your own joy.
It was my least enjoyable one that I've ever done.
It's you can see it in other areas of your life as well. Little things like the text message or the email you're about to send, and then you rewrite it, and then you adjust it, and then you send it, and then you say to yourself, oh, maybe I should have said it like that, or do like this. And it doesn't need to be big things. It can be tiny things in your life.
Accidentally putting 2 kisses on the end of a message to a colleague. I've done, because you're used to messaging your friends much more. Yeah, and then you're like, oh, well.
Yeah.
I've done that before, right? At the end of a text message, I'd said to a building inspector, I love you. And he just messaged me, that's very good, but could I still have the gas installation certificate, please?
Yeah.
So have you ever had the experience of, do you know what, I'm just going to allow this just to be good enough, and it turned out better than you expected?
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah.
I have. I've put stuff out thinking that's mediocre at best. And I don't mean I was doing it from a place of I don't care and all the rest of it. I just didn't think it was that great. And I've had like amazing feedback.
It's always those ones you fling together.
Yeah, the ones where you don't get too much up in your head and you think about it, you just do it. Yeah. But then I've spent like painstaking amount of time putting something together, and people are like, yeah.
I've learnt with fear that if I don't have, like when I'm doing something new, obviously a lot of it is around work. When I'm doing something new or going on a new adventure, if I don't have butterflies, I actually am now more concerned, because I've learnt to embrace those butterflies and that fear and go, right, I'm just going to do this. It means I care. So yeah. I've learnt to make recognize perfectionism is fear, and turn fear into my friend. It's like, okay, well then what do I need to pay attention to here? And actually fear and excitement feel the same in our body neurologically. Like physiologically, it feels the same. Do some breathing, like relax your nervous system. Yeah, now I love fear. And I think there was one event I was doing, and a podcast I was going to be on, and I wasn't feeling fearful. I was like, oh no, something's wrong. Yeah. And then like 5 minutes before, I got a little flutter. I'm like, okay, it's fine. I've got some fear. This is good.
I think one of the best things you can say to yourself is done is better than perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. While you were talking there, when we first started doing the podcast together, if you can remember in the first batch,
oh God, yes.
we had the camera issue and pretty much cut Ian out of the video. Yeah. Or you could see his nose poking in now and again. And there was that holy crap moment of like, what are we going to do? And I remember messaging you going, this is a disaster. And then afterwards, a few hours later, I messaged you going, I think we should just put it out and just be honest and just own it. And we actually got some really good feedback from that, because we could have just scrapped.
We were just deciding whether we were keeping you at that point.
Yeah, I don't know whether to say that personally or not.
But we could have gone, no, it needs to be perfect before we put it out. But we actually went, it's part of our journey. Yeah. Own it.
When we go back and watch the early episodes, hopefully we'll be looking at a far more polished production, and that will just be part of the journey on the way.
Yeah, and do you know that, being your authentic, messy self and just allowing you to do stuff, and actually, in that moment of that thing not going the way we planned, there was a valuable lesson in there, which was actually we need more time. Things we need to check. So we've actually learned a lesson, because the thing is, you don't learn anything when everything goes right, when everything's perfect. It's in those moments of, that was a little bit messy, that was a little bit scrappy. You go, what's the lesson here?
And how can I do better? How can I improve?
How can I improve?
Just a little bit.
I mean, perfect, how dull? Like, really? How dull? If you read the definition of perfect in whatever you're doing, it's a standard you're never going to be able to meet and sustain, ever.
Perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, I love perfectly imperfect, because let's be honest, it's the little foibles and the strange things and weird things that people do that fundamentally you attract the people to you with that kind of stuff.
And also, what's lovely for our listeners too is we're obviously all very authentic. We fluff up when we talk.
Yeah.
We admit when we don't remember what we were going to say.
Yeah.
But we're having a conversation. We're not trying to present a squeaky clean, polished, this is exactly how it should be. And it's because it's liberating, not trying to have everything be perfect. It's freeing, so we get to express.
Yeah.
And that's what people connect with. And I think for people listening as well out there, it's so important. When we've talked about authenticity before, it's like when you can just release that fear, release that perfectionism, and show up as you, instead of this version of what you think people should be, you should be. Or
I think the key point is, though, it's not about lowering your standards.
yes, crucial.
It's just about allowing yourself to enjoy the process. You can still have high standards and not be perfect.
Yeah.
I call it stumbling forward. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Absolutely enjoy the journey.
Well, that's it. If your focus is all on it's got to be perfect, it's got to be perfect, it's got to be perfect, not only do you take all the growth out of it, you just take all the fun out of it.
Well, the other thing you can
Where's the fun
guarantee is,
anymore?
even if you get it to that place of you deem it to be perfect, there'll be somebody out there
Yeah.
that will find some kind of fault in it to prove to you it's not.
Speaking of that, Andy, do you think that perfectionism comes most sort of internally or externally?
I think the part of you doing perfectionism is an internal thing. But I think the reasoning for you to do it is influenced by normally past external events.
We don't.
I can think back to times where I was meant to have things perfect when I was little.
Yeah, I can remember being criticised once for something I was wearing. And
Oh, I had that too. Forgot about that one.
and then afterwards it was like, when I'm in that situation with these type of people, everything now needs to be perfect. Frankly, the person that criticised me was an arsehole. And I took the opinion of an arsehole way above everybody else that was around me that only had nice things to say. And it sent me down a bit of a spiral. And so an external thing started off something very internal, which is I need to control what people say about me and do about me. And you're like, really, it was the other person that needed to take a look at themselves.
Yeah.
100%.
I actually now just remembered a time, I think I was about 6 or 7 in school, in a little tiny primary school in Wales. There was only like 24 kids. And I remember choosing a petticoat to wear because I thought it was really pretty and I wore it as a skirt. The older kids made fun of me and that was the first time I realised that, people make judgments on you. Just remember.
I can remember being at school doing something, and I remember the teacher saying to me, "Oh, you were so good. You did so well. It was so good. But these two over here were just absolutely outstanding. Just a level above. Absolutely amazing." And you suddenly go, okay, you were just telling me that because really you thought I was crap. So suddenly my focus turns to these two individuals and what it is that they're doing, and I now want to be or exceed that. Funnily enough, I still know those two individuals, and I've got a very different frame of reference now. But
Well, I also in the same primary school is my middle brother, who's still alive. He got everything right, and he was always well put together, and everything's great. My younger brother, the one who's died, he was just he would leave school looking like he'd come out through a hedge, and they were always getting compared. So our youngest brother, he couldn't compete. They were just different personalities.
Yeah.
And back in the 70s, we weren't treating for ADHD and all these behavioural issues, and dyslexia, which our youngest brother had. So right from the get-go, he was being compared to his elder brother, who he perceived as being perfect. And I can never be like that because, literally, one of my aunts shared a story recently where she would show up to pick us up from primary school, and my middle brother would come out looking just as pristine as when he'd gone in, and his school satchel, remember them? And then my other brother would come out just literally everything hanging off of him, his bag dragging. But they were just two different personalities. And he had to be authentically himself. But right from the get-go, from school age, primary school, he was being compared to somebody as, that's what perfectionism is. And you're not good enough.
That's other orientated.
Yeah.
Where other people
Yeah.
sort of thrust their idea of perfectionism of you.
Yeah.
So then you sort of feel that's what you need to comply to.
Yeah.
Which really is a shame, and especially with a child, to be sort of pushing that on that, because then that inevitably results in sort of self-orientated perfectionism, where then you feel you need to comply, so you put this pressure on yourself. It's, just not cool, is it really?
No.
Especially with, you know. But that's the thing, we're doing this to our kids, and then you wonder, they become perfectionists, and it kind of stifles their creativity, just to be a child, just for your imagination to run, and do all the things that a kid does. But when you've sort of imposed this sense of perfectionism on it, where's the room to do that?
And normally, you know, when you look at something and you go, oh my God, that's perfect, you're striving to somebody else's standard, or to achieve what you deem to be somebody else's standard, where thereby you're going to be accepted. And go, look at them, aren't they absolutely brilliant? Social media kind of really does lead you into this perfectionism trap, where you see these highlight reels of people's perfect lives, or perfect bodies, or perfect jobs, or you'll see somebody, you'll be some influencer in Dubai with a Ferrari that they've leased, with a tan and the muscles, and you're like, oh my God, they're perfect, and you set yourself off going, I need to be like that. And you live in somebody else's story, somebody else's life, and here's the reality: when you get to that place, you ain't gonna feel how you think you're gonna feel, unless that's genuinely, truly your why, and that's what you want. And you're probably not gonna be more accepted. You're probably gonna invite people into your life and into your energy that aren't actually that good for you.
Well, they're just not there for authentic reasons.
Social vampires.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're again that socially orientated, where you're so concerned about everybody else's ideas of what you should be and how you perceive, or other people expecting you to be perfect. So you're out there presenting this false image, like you said, a leased Ferrari, a false tan.
Yeah. But we've got this society now where so many people, don't do this, don't do it like that, whatever you do, don't do this. And, I see it here when I'm training therapists, and maybe they've been on previous training courses where, they're very much sort of regimented, and you must do it like this, and whatever you do, don't do it like that. Do it your way, your version that works for you, because that is what will help your client and your person. That person telling you must do it their way is about them, not about you.
Yeah.
And you're chasing something that is not really attainable. Be your truly authentic self, doing the best you can with what you got, and execute and refine and move forwards, and you can enjoy the journey without all of this anxiety, or finding yourself feeling deeply depressed because you can't reach the bar because you keep raising it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You keep moving the goalposts on yourself.
You do. Yeah, most of the things you say to yourself and you do are totally not achievable. Just be happy at where you're at, and enjoy the journey of improving, enhancing, refining, and making better. Because I tell you what, when you start doing something, whatever it is, and you look back at where you started and where you're at today, you can actually go, oh my God, haven't I improved so much? Haven't I come so far? You'll learn more in the moments when things don't go right than you will in the moment when things go right. You're robbing yourself of valuable life lessons, and you're actually making yourself miserable. So the next time you're overthinking something and asking yourself, how do I achieve this? How do I get to this standard? Do you feel it's important to ask yourself, why do I feel like I need to get to this level of expectation, requirement, knowledge, skill? Am I doing it for me, or am I doing it because I feel like I'll be accepted, people will like me more? You gave the great example of your family member who had to project this image to the outside world, and I bet you even when they got to that level, they were probably not completely satisfied with where they were at. Even at that stage, there was, in their mind, there always would have been a better place they could have took it to.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But then I don't really know. I've never had a chance to discuss that with her, because I didn't know until after she died the full story. And then that was when all the bits started to make sense.
Yeah.
But it was the projection that she gave to us as grandkids, which was, the more perfect you are, the more you will be accepted. which really...
Oh, yeah, that's a bit grim, isn't it? I think my philosophy, and it is mine, is go with good enough for now and just enjoy that and let it become something better. Stop trying to force it.
Well, again, you're good enough. 80% of what we might be thinking might exceed 100% of what somebody else is capable of.
Yeah.
These are our own standards. You know, so there's nothing wrong with having high standards, but, you know, I'm not saying compare yourself to everybody else, but generally, as people that care about what we do, even when we have a fairly average day, we're a lot better than somebody that doesn't really care.
And when it comes to providing something or doing something, say you provide a service or you've got knowledge that can help other people, but you're holding back from doing it until it's perfective, you're actually being selfish because you've got stuff that could help people and you're holding back on it. So like we were talking about you in your videos earlier because you need it to be absolutely perfect, but we know you've got pearls of wisdom that could really change somebody's life. So
Which, again, that makes it about me.
Yeah.
And not about the people.
Yeah. Allow yourself to screw up. It's absolutely liberating. And you know what? When you do, laugh about it. Have a good chuckle. You know, you're not hurting anybody. I mean, if you were a brain surgeon, we'd probably be having a bit of a different conversation
That's
about
a different
this.
conversation. I was thinking that quietly in the background there.
But generally, a lot of the stuff that we get hung up in life about perfectionism is just trivial guff that doesn't really matter. And here's another question to ask yourself. Will it matter 3 years from now? Probably not.
Probably not.
Absolutely not. So just enjoy the process. So ask yourself, what's one thing you're getting too hung up over? What would be good enough for now? And go and bloody do that. What would you say? Same?
Same, yeah.
Get out there, do it
Get
anyway.
out there, do it anyway.
Face the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Face the fear.
And instead of setting your bar at 100%, set it at 80, which is more than good enough. And
Have fun, be creative,
Yeah.
play a little,
Yeah.
stumble about.
Yeah. Be your authentic, messy
Be
self and
authentic
enjoy the process.
Lovely.
Great. Well, that brings to an end another episode of Tickety Boo. As always, whichever platform you're watching us on, whether that's YouTube, Apple, or Spotify, please click that bell, subscribe, follow icon. It allows us to keep bringing you more episodes like this. And once again, thanks very much for watching.
If you or someone close to you needs to access mental health support, please contact your GP, or if it's out with normal office hours, get in touch with NHS 24 on 111. Alternatively, contact the Samaritans on 116 123. All calls are free of charge from any phone. You can also find more support information on the Tickety Boo website, ticketyboopodcast.co.uk.